It started like most disasters do, with a stupid argument that got way too personal, way too fast. My sister and I were in the middle of one of those sibling showdowns that begin as harmless teasing and end in verbal warfare. The topic? Who had it easier, guys or girls? I, in all my teenage wisdom, insisted women had life served to them on a silver platter. She fired back that I had no idea what being a girl actually meant. For 20 heated minutes, we circled each other like amateur boxers, both desperate to win, neither landing a real punch. Then, Mom, Linda, walked in just in time to hear my sister throw her final jab. Try walking in my shoes for a while, genius. Then you'll see what it's like to be a girl. If only she'd known how literally I was about to take that challenge. You should try walking in my shoes for a while. Then you'd see what it's like to be a girl. I'd smirked and muttered, "Yeah, right," thinking that would be the end of it. But that night, with Megan and Linda out shopping, I got an idea, a dumb one, but funny enough to be worth it. I decided to take my sister's challenge literally. I snuck into her room, grabbed a few of her clothes, and locked myself in mine. It took forever to figure out how all those hooks, straps, and buttons worked, but when I finally caught my reflection, I almost didn't recognize the person staring back. Her fall, that fake hairpiece, gave me shoulder-length brown hair. I used her lipstick, added a bit of blush, and slipped into her light brown heels. When I heard them come home, I waited 20 minutes, heart hammering, then strutted downstairs like it was a fashion show. Megan was on the phone, laughing, telling someone about our argument. She turned mid-sentence, froze, and dropped the phone. "Oh my God, why are you dressed like that?" I grinned. "You said I should walk a mile in your shoes. I was already in your closet, so I figured, why not go all in?" For a second, she just gawked. Then Linda came in, saw me, and started laughing that slow, knowing laugh mothers use when they're already planning something. "You look very nice, dear," she said, straightening my blouse with mock seriousness. "But that hardly counts as walking in her shoes. If you're going to do this, you're going to do it right. I think I'll insist on it. It'll be good for you, let some air out of that inflated male ego, and teach you what girls deal with every single day." "What?" I blurted. She just smiled sweetly. "School's out in a week, right? Perfect. When summer break starts, you'll spend some time as a girl. Properly, I'll help you." "Linda, no way! It was a joke." "I'm sure you'll stop laughing when I've got you in rollers, wearing a nice house dress, washing the dishes," she said cheerfully. "Oh, and you'll need a name. If you don't pick one, I'll choose it for you." I protested, argued, pleaded, but deep down I knew it was pointless. When Linda made up her mind, not even a hurricane could stop her. The only silver lining was that Megan would be away for 3 weeks, missing the humiliation. Still, the thought gnawed at me every day after that. When the last day of school finally came, I got home early, threw my bag on the couch, and flipped on the TV, pretending the whole thing had blown over. Foolish optimism. "Kevin, are you home?" Linda's voice echoed from the kitchen. "Yeah, in here," I called back. "Good, we can get started." My stomach dropped. "You didn't really mean that, did you? It was just a joke." She appeared in the doorway with that calm, terrifying smile. "You took the challenge, dear. Time to pay the piper. Go to your room and undress. I'll be right up." "Ah, Mom." "None of that. Now do as you're told." Arguing was useless. I went upstairs, stripped down to my briefs, and waited. A minute later, she entered, carrying a bottle of something that looked suspiciously like motor oil. Without a word, she slathered me from ankles to chin. The stuff stank and itched like crazy. "Hold still," she said, watching me squirm. "Beauty takes patience." After an eternity, she sent me to the shower with orders to wash it off and shave everywhere. When I came back, towel around my waist, she was waiting with a pile of clothes. "Start with these," she said. Panties, a bra, pantyhose. Under her watchful eye, I dressed, fumbling with every strap and clasp. She helped adjust the bra, stuffed it with socks, then nodded in approval. Better. She pointed to Megan's room. Makeup next. So there I sat, in front of my sister's vanity, staring at my reflection, my freshly shaven face, damp hair, trembling hands, as Linda leaned over my shoulder, with a brush and a smirk that said, "Welcome to womanhood, sweetheart." Then came the rollers, a crown of humiliation, as I thought at first, though Linda treated the process like a sacred ritual. Once every curl was pinned and every strand tucked, she guided me back to my room. From there, the transformation picked up speed. A waist nipper pulled tight around my middle, then a panty brief stuffed with small towels to round out my hips. A short white slip brushed my thighs, soft and ghost-like, before she lifted a pale dress over my head and zipped it up the back. "Shoes," she said simply, handing me a pair of low heels. I slipped them on, feeling my balance tilt forward, awkward, foreign. When I turned toward the mirror, I froze. Even with the rollers still in, I looked like a girl. A surprisingly decent one, too. Not glamorous, not model material, but real. Ordinary. Believable. Linda returned me to the vanity and began pulling out the rollers, brushing my hair into a smooth pageboy cut that framed my face. By the time she stepped back, the boy I'd been that morning was gone, replaced by someone soft-spoken and nervous. "Someone named Well," Linda said, tapping her chin. "What shall we call you now?" I smirked weakly. "Beautiful?" "That's true," she replied with a raised brow. "But keep being smart, and I'll choose something much worse. How about Chloe? It starts with the same letter as your name." "Chloe," I repeated. It felt strange in my mouth, like trying on someone else's skin. "Do I really need a name?" "Yes," she said matter-of-factly. "You'll be dressing this way every day until your sister comes home. By then, I expect you'll be so convincing that she won't believe her eyes. And I'll finally win that argument for good." I knew that look. Arguing was pointless. I was doomed to 3 weeks in skirts. Linda left briefly and came back with her purse and another one. "We need to do a little shopping," she said, handing it to me. "Might as well get used to it now." Before I could protest, she held the door open. I hesitated at the threshold, then stepped outside, praying no one would see. The grocery store wasn't crowded, and for a few minutes I relaxed. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. As we entered, Mrs. Collins, the woman Megan usually babysat for, approached, smiling. "Oh, Megan, perfect timing. Can you sit tonight?" Panic shot through me. My throat tightened. I couldn't answer. But Linda could. "This isn't Megan," she said smoothly. "This is Chloe, my other daughter. And yes, she'll be happy to help." I stared at her in disbelief as Mrs. Collins thanked me and walked away, oblivious. "She depends on your sister," Linda said, unfazed. "Since you're here, why not help? You could use the money." She was right, I was broke. Still, babysitting as a girl? I gripped the shopping cart and followed her in silence as she filled it with groceries. Halfway through the aisles, I spotted a few familiar faces and ducked behind a display. Somehow, I made it to the checkout line without being noticed, or so I thought. "Hey, I almost didn't recognize you." It was Rachel, Megan's boyfriend's sister, flashing a bright smile. "Wow, Chloe, you and Megan could be twins." Linda stepped in smoothly again. "They're practically sisters." Rachel laughed. "You two really look alike, it's spooky. We're having a get-together tonight. You should come." I stammered, cheeks burning. I can't. I'm babysitting." "Next time then, I'll call you." She waved cheerfully and walked off, leaving me stunned and Linda beaming. "See?" Linda said as we loaded the groceries into the car. "I told you you looked fine. Rachel didn't even recognize you." "Gee, Mom, I'm thrilled," I muttered. "You should be. You liked it and you know it," she teased. "It's just a shame you have to babysit tonight. That party sounded fun." "Linda," I said, exasperated, "this was supposed to be a joke. You turned it into a science experiment." She didn't reply, but later, after dinner, she mentioned casually that I might want to freshen my makeup before heading out. Somehow I did. At Mrs. Collins's house, her husband opened the door, barely glancing at me before ushering me in. Two kids, a 3-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl, stared up at me curiously. And there I was, standing in their living room in a borrowed dress and borrowed name, realizing that for tonight and the next 3 weeks, I wasn't Kevin anymore. I was Chloe. Contrary to my expectations, the kids were angels. After a few stories and some half-hearted cartoon chatter, they were both asleep by 8. That left me alone in the living room, a boy disguised as a girl, earning money to sit on someone's couch and watch television. Easy work if you ignored the fact that my reflection in the dark window didn't match my voice inside. When Mr. and Mrs. Collins came home, they paid me with a smile, thanked Chloe, and never once looked twice. On the drive back, the realization hit me neither of them had suspected a thing. I'd been treated like a girl all evening, just as I had at the store, and the strangest part was that no one saw through it. That should have comforted me, but instead it sent a shiver through my stomach. Had I really crossed over that easily? Could just a dress and some lipstick rewrite who I was to the world? I lay awake for hours that night, turning it over in my mind what this little experiment was doing to me. Linda had said 3 weeks. 3 weeks of this. I wasn't sure I could last that long, but a small, shameful part of me wondered if I wanted to. The next morning, I looked like a mess, hair flattened and makeup smudged, but Linda didn't scold me. She just smiled and said, "Time to learn how to do it yourself." Under her guidance, I brushed, powdered, painted, and blended until the mirror showed the same face from the day before Chloe. I was wearing a short skirt, a sleeveless pullover top, pantyhose, and flats when Rachel dropped by unexpectedly. Linda let her in. My heart sank. Rachel blinked at me, then grinned. "Matt says Megan doesn't have a sister, so you've got to be her brother. This is wild. Why are you dressed like a girl?" I sighed and told her everything: the argument, the bet, Linda's idea of justice. She listened, smiling the whole time. "I couldn't tell you weren't a girl," she said finally. "Honestly, you look better than half my friends, and they are girls." "Thanks," I muttered, unsure whether to be flattered or insulted. "You're very pretty, Chloe. There's no shame in that. Just relax, go with it. The awkwardness will fade." "I'm trying," I admitted, "but it still feels weird." She leaned closer, eyes bright. "Emily's having a little get-together tomorrow night. Come with me." "Yeah, right," I scoffed. "I'm not showing up like this in front of my friends." Rachel only smiled wider. "What makes you think they'll recognize you? I didn't, and I've known you for years. You'll be fine." Before I could object, she was already halfway to the door. 7 o'clock, something nice, and heels, of course. "Bye!" I was left sitting there, numb, realizing she'd trapped me. If I didn't show up, she might tell everyone. If I did, they might find out anyway. Linda looked positively delighted. "Perfect opportunity," she said. "You'll see what it's like getting ready, being seen, smiling while men stare." "That's the real test," I groaned. "Do I have to?" Her eyes twinkled with that dangerous mix of mischief and certainty. "Upstairs. Try on a few of Megan's dresses. We'll find something that fits." With a resigned sigh, I obeyed. Under her watchful eye, I tried on dress after dress until she settled on one soft blue, fitted at the waist. Not my choice, but she didn't ask. Then came the salon. I insisted on just a haircut, no perm, and she agreed too easily. The stylist was kind, almost motherly, and seemed delighted to help a shy young lady find her look. She snipped, curled, and sprayed until my hair framed my face in soft waves. I couldn't deny it. It looked good. Linda paid, then glanced at me on the way out. "You look lovely, dear. Want to get your nails done too?" I started to refuse, then caught my reflection in a shop window. For a moment, I forgot who I was supposed to be. The girl staring back at me was me. "Sure," I heard myself say. Linda spun us around, and soon I was seated again, hands under a warm dryer as the manicurist scolded me for neglecting my nails. An hour later, they gleamed soft red, glinting faintly in the light. My fingers looked longer, slimmer, graceful, feminine. Walking out into the sunlight, I flexed them absently, watching the shimmer dance across the polish, and caught myself smiling. I didn't want to admit it, but I couldn't deny it anymore. I liked the way I looked. On the way out, Linda steered us toward a boutique I'd only ever noticed in passing a women's shop with lacy displays and a discreet sign. I followed reluctantly, only realizing halfway through the door that the customers inside weren't all women. The place catered to men who wanted to look like women, and suddenly I wasn't a prankster anymore. I was a client. A friendly clerk greeted us like this was the most natural thing in the world. "Looking for forms?" she asked, glancing at my chest. Before I could stammer out a denial, Linda nodded. "Yes. Something realistic, comfortable, and durable." Within minutes, I was standing in front of a mirror again, while the clerk helped fit me with a pair of breast forms that were alarmingly lifelike. She even showed Linda how to glue them on properly. And Linda, never one to let a teachable moment pass, did it right there in the shop. The cool adhesive spread across my skin, followed by a firm press, and suddenly there was weight, bounce, movement. Every step I took on the way out, I felt them shift, tug, and sway with me. It was unnerving and strangely grounding. My reflection looked smoother, fuller, less like a boy in drag, and more like someone who might actually belong in those heels. We weren't done. Linda picked up a few foam hip pads. "To balance your shape," she said with an infuriating smile. By the time we got home, I was a patchwork project of silicone, foam, and makeup. But when I slipped on the blue dress she'd chosen, everything fell into place. The mirror didn't lie. I looked complete. That night, I didn't sleep much, caught between dread and a growing guilty curiosity about who this Chloe really was. The next afternoon, the ritual began again: hair remover cream, a long soak in a perfumed bath, a careful pass with the razor. My skin was smooth, almost silky, when I stepped out of the tub. I was toweling off when Linda entered, calm as ever. "So," she said, "are you planning to do this halfway, or are you going to make me proud?" "I'll do my best," I muttered. "If I don't, I'm dead anyway." "Good answer," she said. "Then lie down, I can help." I froze as she yanked the towel away. Before I could ask what she meant, a shock of cold hit me, a bag of ice pressed between my legs. "Mom!" I gasped, but she only hummed softly, focused on her work. Then came the glue. By the time I realized what she was doing, it was too late. The pressure, the tug, and suddenly it was gone, my boyhood, replaced by smooth skin and a careful illusion. I stared in the mirror, stunned. Between my legs was not a crude disguise, but something disturbingly real, a gentle curve, a soft shape that looked every bit feminine. Linda left the room silently, and I caught a glimpse of her faint smile as the door closed. I trimmed and adjusted, evening the area with the razor until it blended perfectly. When I dressed again, the transformation was complete. The hip pads filled my sides, the panties hugged naturally, and the mirror reflected a figure that could easily pass at a glance. By the time I sat down at Megan's vanity, something inside me had shifted. Determination, maybe. If I was doing this, I was going to own it. Foundation, powder, eyeshadow in muted greens and grays, black eyeliner sharp enough to slice the air, a touch of blush to bring warmth back to my cheeks. Mascara. Lipstick red, deliberate, confident. Then the rest followed. Bra. The forms adjusted perfectly. The waist nipper cinched tight. The slip floated down my thighs like silk, and the dress, that short, flaring one, slid over my shoulders and zipped up without a wrinkle. Mid-thigh, fitted waist, soft neckline that framed my chest like I'd been born for it. I hesitated in the mirror, turning slightly, testing how it moved when I did. Every bounce, every subtle shift made it feel more real, Who was I trying to fool anymore, them or myself? Black heels next, then accessories. Gold earrings, a matching choker, a slim watch, two rings that caught the light when I moved my hands. A few passes of lipstick to deepen the red, a mist of perfume Megan's favorite. With a brush through my hair, the final version of me stared back. Chloe, poised, polished, unrecognizable. I packed a small purse, moved my things into it, and tucked an old wallet inside. My hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with something else. Excitement, maybe. Freedom? I wasn't sure. Taking one last steadying breath, I headed downstairs. Walking felt different, lighter, smoother, easier somehow, without anything between my legs. And for the first time since this began, I realized I wasn't worried about being discovered. Because now, there was nothing left to reveal. The click of my heels gave me away before I even entered the room. Linda turned, took one look, and whistled softly. "Damn," she said, half laughing, half in awe. "You look as good as your sister, maybe better." "Thanks," I said, though my nerves were already tightening. "Tell me that tomorrow if I'm still alive." "You'll be fine, Chloe. Just remember, act demure. Let the guys lead. Makes them feel important." "We are important," I said reflexively. She smiled. "That's true, honey. But young men don't always realize women are too. Don't stay out past 2. "I'll be home long before that," I promised. We ate a quick dinner, and before I could lose my nerve, Rachel showed up perfectly on time, of course. She gave a low whistle, showered me with compliments, and then we were off. Emily's place was across town, a part of the city I rarely visited. On the drive, Rachel teased me nonstop. "You're going to get hit on so much you'll feel like a drum," she said, laughing. I rolled my eyes, pretending not to care, but my heart was pounding. Rachel was effortlessly stunning long legs, dark brown hair, eyes like polished obsidian that caught every bit of light. Standing next to her, I felt like an understudy to her leading role. I was fine until she pulled into the driveway. Then the panic set in. She was already out of the car when I whispered to myself, "You can't stay in here forever," and followed. Emily met us at the door with a broad smile. "Hey, Rachel! Who's this?" "Emily, this is Chloe," Rachel said smoothly. "She's related to my friend Megan. We all go to Lincoln High." A perfect half-truth enough for Emily to assume I was just another girl in Rachel's circle. I prayed everyone else would do the same. Inside, laughter, music, the smell of popcorn and cheap perfume. I kept my posture careful, my smile soft, my voice light. Rachel introduced me around, and I noticed a couple of extra guys lingering near the stereo, obvious additions to keep the girls company. One of them, Ryan, walked over with a grin that could melt glass. "Can I get you a drink?" "Sure," I said, trying not to squeak. He poured me a cup of something fizzy and sweet, and his eyes never left mine. Taller than me by 2 inches, even with my heels, broad shoulders, easy smile, he was charming, confident, and exactly the kind of guy I'd never know how to talk to as myself. But Chloe? She smiled and laughed at his jokes. Then the music changed, slow, soft. He took my hand. I hesitated, but only for a second, before he pulled me into his arms. The warmth of him, the faint smell of cologne, the way my chest pressed against his, it was all too real. His hand slid lower, resting where it shouldn't, and for a moment I froze. I wanted to tell him to stop, to step back, but the words wouldn't come. The song ended, saving me, but as I turned to grab my drink, someone bumped my arm. The cup tipped, the liquid splashing across my dress. "Damn it!" I gasped, watching it soak through. Rachel and Emily rushed over instantly. "Come on, Chloe, let's get you cleaned up," Emily said, ushering me toward her room. Rachel unzipped me without hesitation. My heart raced. I wasn't worried about what was missing, just what might come loose. I stepped out of the dress, peeled down my panty brief, and cleaned up quickly, praying nothing would fall off or shift. Emily handed me another dress, shorter, clingier, a dark rose color, and Rachel zipped me up like it was the most normal thing in the world. When we returned to the party, heads turned. New dress, new confidence. And after all that, how could anyone doubt I was a girl? I'd literally changed clothes in front of two of them, and no one screamed. If Rachel had noticed anything unusual, she hid it perfectly. Somewhere between panic and relief, something inside me flipped. The less I tried to act like a girl, the more I became one. My movements softened, my laugh came easier. I wasn't pretending anymore, I was living it. When Rachel drifted away to talk to someone else, Ryan reappeared like he'd been waiting for his cue. Another song started, slow again, and before I could retreat, I was back in his arms. This time, I didn't resist. His breath brushed my cheek, warm and close. Our eyes met, and before I could think, he bent down and kissed me. It was soft, quick, but real enough to send a shiver through my entire body. Then he kissed me again, longer, slower, and I didn't pull away. I wasn't sure what startled me more, the electricity that ran through me, or the fact that I didn't hate it. Fear, or something dangerously close to delight, rushed through me in that instant. "Would you like to go for a drive tomorrow, Chloe?" Ryan asked, his voice low and easy. "We could grab a bite, maybe head out by the lakeshore. I'd love to take a few pictures of you." My brain was still stuck somewhere between disbelief and confusion, but my mouth didn't wait for permission. "I'd like that, Ryan," I heard myself say. He smiled, and it was like that smile pulled the floor out from under me. When I finally caught up to what I'd just agreed to, it was too late. Rachel appeared before I could recover, saying she needed to take Ken home and asking if I could get a ride. Naturally, Ryan jumped in with, "I'll take her." And just like that, Rachel kissed me on the cheek, whispered something teasing, and vanished into the night, leaving me with him. The drive was quiet, but thick with everything unsaid. When he parked in front of my house, he turned toward me with that same lazy grin, the one that seemed to erase my willpower. I knew what was coming. I could have stopped it, maybe even wanted to, but I didn't move. His lips met mine, and the spark from the night before became fire. When his tongue brushed my lips, my breath caught, and I opened to him before I even realized I had. The kiss deepened, reckless and dizzying. When he finally pulled away, I was shaking. I bolted for the door, stumbling inside on trembling legs. Linda's light was off, thank God. I tiptoed to my room, stripped, and collapsed onto the bed, heart pounding. Everything had changed. Everyone at that party believed I was a girl. Ryan did too. And lying there, I wasn't so sure I didn't. My hand drifted downward, tracing the smooth illusion Linda had created, feeling the absence where there used to be weight. My chest rose and fell with the soft tug of the form she'd glued there, firm and warm against me. Not a boy, not exactly a girl. Something in between, something new. And for the first time, the thought didn't terrify me. It soothed me. I liked being Chloe. I liked Ryan's kiss. I liked the shape of my body, the softness, the grace. Sleep came slow but deep. When I woke the next morning, sunlight painted the walls, and my reflection greeted me like a stranger I almost recognized. Naked, I studied the person in the mirror, the red-tipped nails, the tousled hair, the faint scent of perfume clinging to my skin. There was no trace of Kevin left, just Chloe blinking back at me. I slipped on panties, a tank top, and a pair of shorts before heading downstairs. "Good morning, dear," Linda said, without looking up from her coffee. "Morning," I mumbled, reaching for the pot. Then, out of nowhere, "Who brought you home last night, and do I know him?" I nearly dropped the cup. How did she do that? I was sure she'd been asleep. "Ryan brought me home," I said carefully. "I don't think you know him, but you'll get to meet him today." Her eyebrows rose. "Oh? He's taking me for a drive, just lunch, nothing dramatic." Don't go full mom mode, please. She only smiled, and to my surprise, let it go. After breakfast, I showered, shaved, and took extra time with my makeup, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. A touch of eyeliner, a soft shimmer on my cheeks, coral lipstick to match the mood of the day. I chose a navy skirt and a white pullover top, something light and flattering. My bra lifted my forms perfectly, the cups hugging me just right. Pantyhose, gold earrings, a watch, a hint of perfume, and flats. The result made me pause. It wasn't a disguise anymore, it was presentation. Then I walked into the kitchen and froze. Mark. I hadn't seen him in nearly 4 years, and there he was, my father sitting at the table, staring at me. "Dear," Linda said, her voice careful, "this is Chloe." "Chloe, huh?" His eyes traveled the length of me, unreadable, landing somewhere between suspicion and curiosity. I forced a small smile, set my purse on the counter, poured another coffee, and sat across from him. My pulse was hammering so loud, I was sure he could hear it. "You look very nice," he said finally, voice even. "But why are you dressed as a girl?" Before I could think of an answer, the doorbell rang like divine intervention. I shot up, grateful for the escape, and opened the door to see Ryan, smiling that same easy smile. "Hi, Chloe." "Hi, Ryan, come in." "Who is it?" Linda called. "It's Ryan," I said quickly. She appeared beside Mark, her tone suddenly bright. "Linda, Dad, this is Ryan." Ryan shook Mark's hand, polite and confident. "Nice to meet you, sir." Linda smiled. "Have her back by dinner, Ryan. Drive carefully." "Yes, ma'am," he said. I grabbed my purse and joined him, standing a little too close, pretending I didn't feel my father's eyes on me. Outside, Ryan laced his fingers through mine, and we started toward the car. He could sense my tension, anyone could, but he didn't mention it. He just squeezed my hand and said softly, "You look beautiful today." And for once, I didn't argue. He drove us out of Dallas, the city fading into rolling countryside until the air smelled like sun-baked grass and lake water. I tried to keep small talk going, but my mind was still tangled from the morning Dad's sudden appearance, the way he'd stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. Ryan finally glanced over. "You okay? You've been quiet." I sighed. "That was my father you met. I haven't seen him in 4 years. He just showed up. I barely know the man, but the way he looks at me like I'm something he can't quite figure out, it makes me feel about 2 inches tall." Ryan smiled gently. "That's because the last time he saw you, you were a kid. Now you're a woman. Anyone would be thrown by that." If only he knew the truth. The change my father had seen wasn't from girl to woman, it was from boy to woman. No wonder he'd looked like someone had hit him with a brick. And when Ryan showed up, clearly my date, Dad had probably been silently combusting inside. Yet, to his credit, he'd never let it show. He'd treated me with the same polite distance he always had. Ryan's hand came to rest on my thigh, warm and steady. I placed my hand over his, leaving it there. I wasn't going to think about Dad anymore. Last night, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't Kevin, at least not right now. I was Chloe. The car climbed to the overlook above the lake. Ryan parked, opened the trunk, and pulled out a blanket. The sun was strong, the breeze soft, the whole scene cinematic enough to make my stomach flutter. We spread the blanket out and sat side by side. When his hand brushed my chin, turning my face toward him, the world went quiet. His lips met mine again, slow, confident, certain, and that familiar shiver ran straight down my spine. This time, I didn't question it. We lay back, the sunlight warm on our faces. The smell of his cologne, the sound of the lake below, his heartbeat against my shoulder, everything blurred together, until I wasn't sure where Chloe ended and the world began. I knew he wanted more. I could feel it in the way he pressed closer, but I stopped him gently, meeting his eyes until he smiled and eased back. We drove into town later, grabbed lunch, laughed like any other couple on a summer afternoon. When he brought me home, I floated inside on a cloud of quiet disbelief and soft confusion. Mark was gone. Linda sat in the family room, knitting, as calm as if the world hadn't just shifted again. "How was your day?" she asked without looking up. "Fine," I said, still smiling. She didn't press, not at first. 20 minutes later, she finally spoke. "Your father was shocked, but I told him you're almost completely female now, and what he thinks doesn't matter. He said you look a lot like his mother. He also told me why he came. He's getting married. Wanted to tell us in person. He asked if you and Megan would be bridesmaids." I blinked. "What?" I told him no. She said simply, "He's been out of your life too long. It would be ridiculous. You're not really his daughters anyway. He was a donor, nothing more. And he won't be back." That stung in ways I didn't expect. We sat there for a while watching TV, the quiet only broken by the click of her needles. Then, as casually as if she were asking about dinner, she said, "So, did you enjoy yourself with Ryan?" I nearly choked. What do you mean?" She smiled. "Wipe off your mouth, dear, then ask me again." I bolted for the bathroom. My lipstick was smeared clean off. My reflection grinned back at me, guilty, flustered, and still somehow pleased. I washed up and returned to find her watching me knowingly. I had this talk with Megan when she was 15, she said, setting her knitting aside. "Now it's your turn. Dating can be wonderful, but be careful. Men love it when we give them what they want, but they don't always love us after. Be smart, Chloe. If you ever do something like that, keep it private. And don't rush into it. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am," I murmured. She nodded once, satisfied. Then, softly, "Can I assume you've decided to remain Chloe? Should I say goodbye to my son?" The air between us tightened. It was the moment I'd been circling for days. I took a breath and said the truth. "I don't see how I can go back," I told her. "Everyone's seen me. They all think I'm a girl, Ryan, Rachel, the whole lot of them. I can't undo that now." Linda studied me for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Then I suppose my son's gone, and my daughter's just learning to walk." The next week passed in a quiet rhythm. Linda watched as I did my hair, guided my hand as I applied eyeliner until I didn't need her help anymore. Each morning, I woke up less as Kevin pretending, and more as Chloe existing. That silly argument about walking in my sister's shoes had turned into something far bigger, an education neither of us could have predicted. Megan was due home Friday night. She'd left with a brother. She'd be coming home to a sister. On Friday afternoon, I took my time dressing, building the picture in the mirror layer by layer until everything looked effortless. 2 hours later, the reflection looking back wasn't pretending anymore. My skin was smooth, the makeup subtle but sharp, my hair set into soft curls from a night of rollers. The blue dress I'd bought for this exact moment hugged my waist and skimmed my thighs, the neckline showing just enough of the shape I now wore like second nature. White heels, a pale necklace, nails and lips, the same soft red, the image was complete. Linda joined me in the living room just before Megan arrived. She took one look, smiled that quiet, knowing smile of hers, and sat beside me to wait. When the door opened and Megan's voice called through the house, my stomach flipped. She stepped into the room, saw me, and froze. "Megan," Linda said, voice calm and warm. "Let me introduce your sister, Chloe." For a second, Megan just stared, confusion giving way to shock, then to something softer. She let out a squeal and threw her arms around me. "Remember," Linda said, "when you told Chloe to walk a mile in your shoes? Well, she did, and she liked the walk." Megan pulled back, eyes wide. "A special friend, too?" "What? You look amazing!" Linda only laughed. "Go change, sweetheart. We're going out to dinner. We'll explain everything there." Megan disappeared and reappeared in record time, her own dress echoing mine. Over dinner, we told her everything. How the joke had started. How it had changed me. How I'd learned I liked who I was as Chloe. That even naked I looked the part. Megan gasped at that. then grinned like she'd been handed a secret. When I told her about Ryan, about the party, about passing effortlessly among her friends, she shook her head in disbelief. "You've been stealing my wardrobe," she said finally, laughing. "Fine. I always wanted a sister anyway. I can't wait to meet this guy." She did the next night when Ryan came to pick me up. From that moment, the three of us fell into a rhythm: late-night talks, borrowed makeup, shared laughter. The awkward brother-sister distance was gone. In its place was something lighter, genuine. Ryan, meanwhile, was steady, patient, and relentless. Through July, his persistence wore down my caution, until one warm evening on the hill above the lake, I stopped pretending to resist. The world fell away. There was just the wind, the water, and him. The rest blurred hands, warmth, the dizzy rush of crossing a line I'd only ever imagined. When it ended, I lay there trembling, not from shame, but from the realization that I'd chosen it. After that, everything changed quietly. The secret stayed ours, a turning point neither of us could undo. By the time August came, I was living fully as Chloe. College began, and I walked into it wearing the life I'd built: skirts, confidence, and a name that finally fit. Hormones followed that fall, my body catching up with the person I'd already become. The curves, the softness, the reflection that no longer required illusion. Almost a girl, I'd written once in a journal. But looking in the mirror now, I knew better. Whatever the world called me, I knew who I was, and I didn't need anyone's permission to stay there.